and, well, to read. Capitals, is it capital? No, Republic. Not Hunger Games. The third, whoa. Going great. Hey fellow fiction fanatics, I'm Chase. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing my monthly wrap-up for both October and November. So I've got quite a few books to talk about, so let's get into it. In October, I was able to read 4 books. The first book I was able to read was The Hidden Witch by Molly Knox Ostertag. This is the second book in the Witch Boy trilogy, and in this book it centers more around Charlie, Aster's friend, and introduces some new characters along the way. I really like that this book focuses on a variety of deep, relevant issues. I love that the story was so heartfelt and sweet, and I really recommend this book for all ages. So I gave this book 5 stars, and I definitely recommend picking up the series if you have the chance. The second book I was able to read in October was Dreams of Gods and Monsters by Laini Taylor. This is the final book in the Daughter of Smoke and Bone trilogy. I thought these characters were fantastic. I have to say that Susanna and Mick were definitely my favorites. Book 1 ended in this shocking plot twist. Book 2 was a whirlwind of intense emotions and events. And Book 3 was supposed to be this epic conclusion. However, I think this needed a 4th book. It really did. Don't get me wrong, I loved this series. But if we'd had that 4th book, the loose ends could have just been wrapped up or explained more, and I would have gotten so much more out of it. The epilogue was just far too mundane for how epic this series was. Okay, so for me to go more in depth of why I didn't love this last book as much as I wanted to, I'm gonna have to go into some spoilers. So if you don't want to hear spoilers, skip ahead until spoilers here is gone. I just can't believe that it ended where it did. It's like she dangled this insanely awesome carrot in front of us and we never got to see it come into fruition. Like seriously, that's where we're gonna end? So if there had been a 4th book, I would have liked this book to end where it did, before the epilogue, or I would have liked this book to end where Eliza says that she knows how to find another portal to get back to Eretz. That would have been a major cliffhanger, and then you could have gotten this epic introduction, all the rest that had happened in this book, along with actually seeing things that we wanted to know what happens next, and things I would have loved to see in this 4th book. Learning more about the Farseers and the Seraphim, I would have liked that expanded on so we could have learned more about them. The excavation and resurrection of the souls of Laramendi, like that is a big deal, and we just sort of like jumped ahead and like, yeah, that happened. That was a big deal. I would have wanted to have more of that. The romance between Eliza and Scarab, that's another thing I would have liked to see, because it would just sort of offhandedly mention that they had this insane connection, and I would have liked to see an actual relationship happen there. Oh yeah, and becoming freaking god stars, like I need to see that happen. That's just so epic and amazing, and we saw none of it. We were just like, oh yeah, and you'll get to do that in the future. Plus, I just love these characters and don't want it to end, so I would have loved a 4th book, so that didn't have to happen. You know, as soon. So if this had had a 4th book, I probably would have given it 5 stars, but instead I gave it 4.75 stars. And this completed my challenge to read a book that's part of a trilogy. The 3rd book I read was Daughter of the Deep by Rick Riordan. So all I think you should really know going into this book is that it's by Rick Riordan and it's his take on a modern version of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Honestly, I was a little unsure about this book going in. I don't really know why, because Rick Riordan is my favorite author, and I just wasn't sure because it wasn't mythology and I didn't know if I'd like it as much. But I was absolutely wrong, and I loved it. It was amazing. I read the first couple chapters and was like, wow, this is so good. Of course it is. It's Rick Riordan. I'm sorry I ever doubted. I loved the characters, I loved the diversity, and I loved the plot twist. This was pretty much non-stop action, and I loved it. I was absolutely hooked from the start, and I am so glad I picked it up. My only dislike, if you can even call it that, is that I'm kind of sad that it's just a standalone. I would have been happy if it had been a series, but it definitely wrapped up nicely. But of course, if you wanted to make it into a series, I'd be fine with that too. So as you could probably tell, I gave this book 5 stars, and I completed my Luck of the Draw challenge. And then the 4th and final book I read in October was Pumpkinheads by Rainbow Rowell and Faith Erin Hicks. So this book is about two friends on their last night working at the most perfect pumpkin patch in the world. Honestly, I just wish this place was real, and like Deja, I'd want to eat all the delicious food because it sounds absolutely amazing. This book is just the embodiment of fall. This book is just phenomenal, and I just can't recommend this highly enough. So of course, I gave this book 5 stars, and it completed my challenge to read a standalone. Alright, on to the books I read in November. So in November, I was able to read 3 books, so let's get into it. The first book I read was Tiny Pretty Things by Sonia Sharaportra and Danielle Clayton. The story is about girls who are at a ballet academy and who will do absolutely anything, and I mean anything, to be at the top. This book was just the epitome of infuriating. The characters were absolutely atrocious to one another. I hated the drama, and I hated this unattainable level of perfection that these girls were pushing themselves to achieve. It was just sick, really. I did not like it at all. Everyone was just so petty and horrible, and they had no right to do the things that they did to each other. The ending just made me mad, and I will definitely not be picking up the second book in this duology. Not gonna happen. No way. So I gave this book 2 stars, and it completed my challenge to read a book with a dark cover. Thankfully, the second book that I read, I enjoyed a whole lot more, and that was The Cardboard Kingdom by Chad Zell and a number of other authors. So this is a graphic novel sort of comic collection about these stories involving these kids and their summer creating this imaginary world called The Cardboard Kingdom. I loved seeing their imagination and then what was happening in real life, and I loved seeing those two just coincide. It was just so sweet and fun. I thought these characters and their stories and little adventures were absolutely adorable. This is probably my favorite way to read an anthology. I loved seeing each of their stories, and it was just such a fun way to see everything played out. I loved the messages and the themes, and I love how they all connected, and I cannot wait to pick up the second book. So I give this book 5 stars, and it completed my challenge to read a book with an odd number of pages. And the third and final book that I read in November was Legend by Mary Lou. So this book is about a dystopian future and a 15-year-old boy named Day who is the country's most wanted criminal. On the other hand, we have June, who is the Republic's 15-year-old prodigy, and for June's first real mission, she is sent out to track down Day. And that's where the story really begins. I liked the 2 different perspectives. I thought it was really cool how it was laid out because Day's chapters were written in a certain font and also a different color. They were in like a gold. June's chapters were written in a different font and were more structured and were written in black. And I thought that had a cool effect, although I didn't love that each chapter would just have their name. If it was gonna do that, I would also like a number as well, mainly because it makes it harder for me to go back and tab them if I want to, but that's just a personal thing. I did enjoy these characters. I think Tess was probably my favorite, and I will be carrying on with the series because I am intrigued to see what happens next. However, there was some things that I did dislike about this book. It was definitely on the younger YA side. The romance was very insta-love, which just kind of had me rolling my eyes. If it had sort of just hinted at the chemistry between them and saved the kiss for the second or maybe even the third book, the romance was just way too fast, and I feel like if it had been drawn out more, it would have been better, but that's just my opinion. And I will have to say that the plot was pretty predictable. But again, it's on the younger YA side, so that totally makes sense. Alright, so again, I'm gonna put some spoilers, so wait till this goes away if you don't want to hear it. The character deaths definitely made me sad, and I feel so bad for Day and for June, but really for Day at the end. They both lost their parents and their brothers at the hands of the Republic. I really hope that they can save Eden and expose the Republic for everything that they've done. I did enjoy this, but just not as much as I was hoping to, but I will be continuing on to see how everything plays out. So overall, I give this book 3.5 stars, and it completed my challenge to read a book with a 1-word title. So those are all the books that I was able to read in October and November. If you've read any of these, I'd love to know what you thought of them, and I'd love to know what some books that you were able to read over the past 2 months. As always, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and don't forget to shed the love. I'll see you next time. Bye!